Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis. As always, joined with my co-host and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. When I say Hall of Famer, we're going to be addressing something that's been related to the Hall of Fame that has gotten some news over the past uh, several days. I know, Steve, you're looking forward to addressing that. We'll hit on that topic near the end of the episode. That said, we want to focus our attention on Wimbledon. You were there the whole second week. Big time congratulations to both Iga Swiatek, Jannik Sinner. Jannik Sinner did a great job brushing off some rough scar tissue from what he had in the final of Roland Garros, losing a brutal final to Carlos. Didn't really shake him that much, and he bounced back quite quickly. It just goes to give credit to his team and Yannick himself, his character. That a loss like that in Roland Garros, it could leave some bad wounds for a long time, and it really didn't, Steve.
You know what?
Um,
That's interesting that you'd say that because I get it, and I think you're partially right. But I think he was briefly shaken, and I think that's why he talked about sleepless nights that week after Roland Garros. I like that though because he wasn't trying to hide how much it stung and how disappointed he was not to win it. And in the end, I think he was able to sort through that and get himself in the right frame of mind for the final. And that's what makes it so commendable because you're trying to break a 5-match losing streak against your chief rival in the finals of Wimbledon. And your chief rival has won the tournament 2 years running. And some people think he's capable of winning 5 in a row. So and it's the biggest match they've ever played. I mean, obviously Roland Garros was huge. And the U.S. Open quarterfinal 3 years ago, you could cite a lot of them, and some of the other finals like Indian Wells in 24, but this one is the Wimbledon final. It's the preeminent event in tennis, and he beats the two-time defending champion and ends the losing streak. So I think Sinner will look back on this one years from now as one of the most critical triumphs of his career.
and it would be interesting to see if the result was the same result if they hadn't played in the final of Roland Garros. Of course, we'll never know, but
Or if Sinner had won Roland Garros,
correct.
they had played and he'd won, would Carlos then have turned the table? So we'll never know that. But I think that Sinner understood that it was a critical time he absolutely had to make his move. It was not one that in his own mind he could justify again. Okay, sure. There was always the possibility that he just gets badly outplayed. That can happen. But barring that, I think what he said and what he seemed to be saying in his mind was, if you put yourself in a winning position this time, you're going to close it out. I don't care what it takes. You're going to demand it of yourself. And that's what he did. And it wasn't easy by any means. But if you look at the score line, I mean, he won the first set. He lost the first set 6-4 after being up 4-2. That was another big blow, by the way.
Oh, especially on how that set was won with Alcaraz hitting a desperation slice backhand
Oh,
winner.
unbelievable shot. Unbelievable shot. But what led up to that, of course, was some frailty from Sinner, and he knew it. And those were the only 2 times in the whole match that he lost his serve. Then the second, third, and fourth sets, never broken. Faced a break point after breaking Carlos in the opening game of the second set, in the second game of the second set, and fended it off, and then didn't face any more break points until 4-3 in the fourth, down 15-40.
Huge moment of the match.
Huge moment. He had a clutch hold there, and then 2 games later, he served it out easily, held at 15, won another.
Down 15-40, he won 4 points in a row.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he did. He did. And who knows what would have happened. I mean, if he gets broken, it's 4-all. Maybe it's similar to the first set. Maybe it's a tiebreak. Maybe they go to a tiebreak, but whatever. There would have been.
Does some doubt come in, especially what happened in Roland
Yeah,
Garros?
right. But he wasn't doubting himself that day. It was funny because one of my colleagues came around, moved his seat, and sat behind me, and he was sensing. He said to me very early in that game, "Carlos is going to break here. I can feel it. Look at Carlos." And I said, "Yeah, but it's going to be up to Sinner to hold his nerve." And I noticed that Sinner used the same phrase after the match about holding his nerve. And he knew that was going to be such a big part of this occasion, whether he could do that. But think about that. It was only in that second game of the second set and the 8th game of the 4th set that he got in real difficulties on his serve. Otherwise, the serving was magnificent, backed it up beautifully. His second serve, Carlos felt like the key to the match was the second serve returns, that Sinner returned better off the second ball. That I'm sure that's true, but in turn he also just served better than Carlos. Carlos at times, David, served brilliantly, and he's got that wide slice going in the deuce court now. I had the perfect view from the press section watching him hit that serve, and it was devastating. And technically, it looks better than ever, and he mixes the serve up better. But the fact is that he got broken once in every set, and it could have been more than that. As well as he served, it could have been more than that. That's a credit to Yannick Sinner.
I agree. I want to talk about the semis briefly because I thought there were two very interesting semis. Credit to you, with Taylor Fritz making the semi. We talked about this before the tournament started when we looked at the draw a little bit, and we said, "Hey, Taylor has a really really difficult first two rounds," which he did. I mean, he was lucky. He was down 5-1 in that breaker.
Yeah,
He was so
right.
close to losing his first round match. And then he plays Diallo the second match, another tough opponent. But credit to you, in our preview episode, you said even with those really tough early round draws, you liked him. I think you said getting to the semis. I don't know if you
Yeah.
said quarters. I think you
Yeah, I
said
did. I did.
semis.
What
Um,
I would admit, though, is this is where I tip my hat to Taylor. Is going in, I didn't think he would do quite as well as he did against Alcaraz. I thought it could end up being straight for Carlos, or maybe a more straightforward four-set match, like a 6-3 in the fourth. And here's Taylor wins the second. Came back after Carlos played a superb opening set, and he broke Carlos to win the second set, grabbed that break at the very end of the set, lost the third, but then played an almost perfect fourth. And they go to a tiebreak in the fourth, and he's 1-4 down and wins 5 straight points. So he's got 2 set points to reach a fifth set, and bit unlucky because he hit a great serve on the first set point. And that return was just floating back, and I had the feeling that Fritz was kind of hoping it might go wide, but he then didn't set up and step in and really nail the backhand off the return, and he paid a price for that because Carlos got in later in that point and made a good little touch volley, angle cross court, and Fritz missed a pass. So, and then he missed again on the next set point off the forehand. So that was a bit unlucky, and maybe he got a bit tight. Who's to say? But he was ever so close to a fifth. And I think
6-4, Steve. Like you play these top guys and you have them 6-4, and to lose that 4 points in a
it
row
was
to
a
lose the
heartbreaker. And he
match.
had opportunities on all 4 points. I mean, the 6-all, there was an approach shot that he didn't do enough with, and Carlos hit a forehand pass at his feet. And anything that could go wrong from 6-4 did. Carlos, kind of in the mode that he was with Sinner on the match points in Paris, where on those last 4 points he wasn't going to miss, but Taylor had openings. Nonetheless, Taylor had come back from 1-4 in that breaker
Yes.
when it looked pretty hopeless. So all in all, he played two really good sets, and the other two he didn't play badly. Taylor admitted that he did play a poor opening service game of the match. He went down a break immediately in the first set. That was his own fault. He didn't serve a good game, and he kind of handed Carlos the first set in a sense by losing his serve there. But all told, David, you look at this performance in the semis. I mean, it's a step up from what he played against Sinner in the U.S. Open Finals. So there's no doubt that Fritz is making play. And also, he's made me eat my words because I would have said anything earlier in the year. This year, Taylor goes from 4 in the world down to much lower in the top 10. I didn't expect him to disappear, but I thought he'd go down to the next rank, so to speak.
And look, up to a certain point this year, he wasn't 100% healthy, as we
No, he
talked.
wasn't. But then look what he's done: the 2 grass court titles, the semis of Wimbledon, lots of hard court tournaments coming up where he could do quite well. No reason he can't have another really good Open. So I guess my point is, I'm now looking at him saying, no, I was dead wrong. He may well end this year pretty much where he ended last year at 4 in the world. And who's to know what happens with Zverev, whether Zverev's going to be able to pull himself together. We'll talk a little bit more about him later, I know, and his plans. But I'm pretty confident now that Fritz stays at least in the top 5 in the year-end rankings, which is a great accomplishment. It's a validation of everything he did last year.
Yeah, well said. Like you said, he's got the summer hardcourt season coming up, and he should do well in those series of tournaments. Let's talk about the other semi briefly. Sinner beats Novak 6-3, 6-3. I'm sorry, 6-3, 6-3, 6-4. Couple stats. First time since 2017, the Wimbledon final will not have Novak. And it's also the first time since 2002 that the Big Four not in the final. So A lot of crazy statistics there without having Novak or anyone in the Big Four there. That said, this is the second slam that Sinner beat Novak in, second consecutive slam that Sinner has beaten Novak
But
in.
very different, David, from the last one, because I don't know if Novak was 100% in Paris physically, but he was much closer to 100%. And he played after losing kind of a routine first set 6-4. The last two were 5 and 6, and he played really well. And he had 3-set points in the third set. And the kinds of points and rallies they were having there was much higher caliber tennis from him. He took a fall at the end of his match with Caboli, the Italian, that was kind of scary. And Caboli came around from his side of the court to check on Novak. That was after Caboli had saved a second match point in the last game of the match. And Novak got back up and finished off the 4-set win. And then he was kind of hoping that his physio and his team could put him back together again for the final. It was not the case. He was not moving anything like his normal self in that match, David, which was sad because change of direction was very difficult. Coming out of the corners, recovering, he just wasn't up to it. And I honestly think he might have defaulted if this not a Grand Slam tournament. And I think the only reason there hasn't been more talk about it is because he deliberately tried to downplay it, and he went out and played. But I think he was not feeling good at all out on that court. And I could see it by the middle of the first set.
Yeah, the movement was not typical Novak movement.
No, and it has to be 100% to be competing against Sinner. And then there was a stage in the second set, David, where you'd see him serve and volley 3-4 points in a row. That's not how he plays. He serves and volleys selectively. And so that was a giveaway that he just didn't trust his lateral movement at the baseline. And so that one was hard to watch. It's interesting when you look back on it, because I think Sinner played one of the great matches of his career in the final. In the fourth round, he was almost gone against Grigor Dimitrov.
That's so unfortunate, that circumstance.
And
So
Grigor goes down, and Sinner admitted afterwards it didn't feel like a victory, and he's down 2-0 and 2-0 in the third, and he gets the retirement. And then he did play well against Shelton. Typical performance there, 6-4 and 4, breaks him at the end of the second, end of the third, outplays him in the tiebreak, wins the last 7 points from 0-2 in the tiebreak. Then he plays Novak, and as I just alluded to, I mean, he knew he wasn't playing the real Novak, and so it was hard to judge his form. He played well enough. He played some really good tennis, but he wasn't tested to the hilt. And then despite those kind of weird circumstances of the Dimitrov retirement and the Djokovic far from his best Djokovic, in the final, he was ready. He was primed, and good for him. And those things happen. You know that in '99, Sampras was playing Philippoussis in the quarters. He'd beaten Philippoussis at Wimbledon a couple of times pretty badly. But this time, Mark got off to a great start and won the first set, and they're on serve in the second. And Philippoussis went down with some kind of an injury, and he had to retire. And that was, but that was just a set. That wasn't 2-0. That was right. One set. Sampras ended up similarly to Sinner here with Alcaraz. Pete went out and played one of the best matches of his career to beat Agassi 3-4 and 5 in the final. So it's these great players. If they get a second life or a second chance, they take it.
Absolutely. Couple things. One, we didn't say it yet. This was the first loss in a slam final for Carlos Alcaraz. He was undefeated. So
yeah, he was 5-0. He was
5-0 there. Also, I wanted to point out, Steve, I actually just got it delivered today. You write, as you have for a while now, maybe 2 years now, in the Advantage magazine. You talked about it. The title is called "Rivalries Raise the Profile of Tennis," and you go on about how important Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner rivalry is, especially after the big three, big four, right? But you go into history even way beyond that and talk about how rivalries raise the profile of tennis. And it was timely. You said you submitted this article before Wimbledon, but I mean, the last seven slams have been won by one of the two of these. So you had a good chance of it still being applicable. Obviously, It was with what happened.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I enjoyed writing that piece, and I knew there was a decent chance they would meet again here. But obviously, you're just trying to weigh all those things. It was more important to just talk about the prominence of the rivalry. But listen, it's these two guys, what they're doing for the sport. And one of the things I felt strongly about David was I thought it was important that Sinner reassert himself, because in those 5 matches in a row that he lost, it wasn't just the 3 match points at Roland Garros, but it was Beijing last fall where he was serving at 3-love in the final set tiebreak, double mini break up in the tiebreak, and never won another point. There was the French semi a year ago, 2-1 for Sinner. Carlos won that in 5. Of the 5 losses, Sinner could easily have won 2 or 3 of those matches. So I just thought it was important for the rivalry, because one of my points when I wrote that piece was, I mean, you need some fluctuating fortunes. You need both guys to have their share of success. And I think that's exactly how it's going to play out, David, from here on in. I really expect that neither one will dominate for too long. They're going to just keep pushing each other to the hilt and learning from, and you know, Cahill talked about, you probably read Cahill's comments that Sinner watches more Alcaraz matches than anything else. And Sinner has pretty much confirmed that. He said after the Beijing loss last fall, he was talking about how he thinks all the time about what it's going to take. Now, he's not obsessed with Carlos he didn't see him as an enemy, but as a rival. It's like, what do I have to do to beat this guy? What's it going to take? It's foremost on his mind. And I think that's true vice versa. And Carlos would be going back to the drawing board after this one and say, okay, what went wrong? What do I have to do now so that I can get back on top? And I think that's the way they're going to keep approaching it. And I honestly think now, I don't expect either one to ever run off a streak like Carlos just did. They might each win a couple in a row, 2 or 3 in a row, and then the other will strike back. And we may be in for 10 years of this sublime tennis.
Just have them both stay healthy, Steve. Just have them both stay healthy. It'll be great. It'll be great. All right. I do want to obviously talk about the women's field, and we're going to talk, about the final and Iga's run, and it's a great title for her. She hasn't won a major in a little while for her standards, right? But the one thing I do also want to mention, because it takes me back a couple of years ago, Coco Gauff just won her incredible title in Roland Garros. She loses in the first round. She had a tough draw. She did lose to Yastrzemska in the first round, but 2 years ago she also lost in the first round to Sophia Kenin, and she went
true.
And she followed that first round loss with winning the U.S. Open. So it's not all negative that can happen the rest of the summer for Coco. So don't write her off by any means.
No, absolutely. And she had maybe an understandable letdown. Roland Garros was a big deal. It's her second major. She's now moved out of that one slam club that nobody wants to belong to. They all want to back up that first success with more. And so she'll know now that she broke a leg. She suffered a serious injury tomorrow and never could play tennis again. She's got 2 majors for her career, and that's fantastic.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. But yeah,
no, this setback I don't think will last for long, because she'll settle into a winning pattern, I suspect, over the summer on the hard courts, which she loves, and she'll be right back in the thick of things in a hurry.
And I next want to talk about Amanda Anisimova, because this was quite a story, and this was a great run, 6 matches, 6 wins, right? Highlighted with the incredible semifinal win over Arina Sabalenka. And a lot of people talked about Amanda's story. She lost in qualifying at Wimbledon last year.
Right.
After taking an extended mental health break in tennis. But I also remember, and this wasn't really talked about a lot. I know you know this. You remember this, Steve. But in 2019, really like right before the U.S. Open was about to start, they were in New York. Amanda's dad passed away of a heart attack.
Yeah.
This is all just part of someone's story, someone's journey. But I think that also should be stated as well as what we just said. Look, she's taking an extended health break. Right. She's taking an extended mental health break from it. She lost in the qualifying. This was an incredible run from Amanda. And the final, and we all know the score. It was 6-0, 6-0 for those who forgot. I think she will take a lot of positives. There was some stuff on social media afterwards with pictures with family and whatever. I hope she really, and I think she will, Steve, I hope she really focuses on the 6 wins and not so much the final.
Oh, no, I in time she will. Listen, just to back up your point about her father dying that way, don't forget that it was just months earlier. I was there. I saw the match. Semifinals of the French Open against Ash Barty, a hard fought. She darn near beat Ash Barty in a hard-fought three-set match in the first major semifinal. She was headed to these kinds of destinations back then, and I think losing her
6 years
father
ago. That's 6 years ago.
6 years ago, and we thought then, oh, she is going to be great, and she's gone through. She's had a difficult life since. No, I think what will happen, David, is she herself and her team are going to realize, look, you can lose a Wimbledon final, love and love, and you were unlucky enough to have that happen, and or you can lose it 7-5 in the third, and the bottom line is you're still a finalist. It doesn't change anything. You can't forget that you beat Sabalenka in a three-set semifinal and all the other good wins you had along the way. So I think she'll sort that out pretty quickly in her mind and realize it was a sad day for her that she couldn't do a little bit better. But I honestly believe, David, you've seen Iga, you've seen the way you've seen Sabalenka at her best, you've seen Iga at her best, Keys, any of the top players, Coco. Nobody else was going to beat Anna Samova. I don't care how nervous she was, love and love. Nobody else. Only Iga could have done that, and because Iga was bearing down so hard, and look at Iga. It's mainly happened on clay, I know, but nobody wins more 6-love sets than her. It kind of reminds me of Christie in the old days. It's like, no, I'm taking no prisoners. You are going to have to earn every point you win from me and every game from me, and if you're not up to it, I'm not giving it to you. And I thought
And this is
Iga
not
was
her best surface. This is not Iga's best surface by
no,
any
but
means.
she this tournament, it's true, but the tennis that she played after losing to Katie McNally a 7-5 set, she just destroyed everybody. And people like Towson, Samsonova, 2-love over Bencic in the semis, love in the finals. She just got better and better. I think because the weather was so warm and really hot weather, the courts hardened a bit. Maybe it was a little more akin to a hard court. Whatever the reason, she became so comfortable. And I got to believe, David, that there's a carryover here. I mean, you alluded to the last time she won. It was Roland Garros a year ago. It was the last tournament of any kind that she won, never mind just a major. And so I think it makes her really dangerous in the hard court season because, she's kind of reminded herself of what she can do on other surfaces again. And she's won the U.S. Open 3 years ago. She knows she can win this, and she's won other important hard court titles. So I think this is going to be a big shot in the arm for Iga Swiatek. But I really mean that. I don't think anybody but her was beating Anna Samova, was going to be that ruthless and that efficient and that hard-nosed about it, because she didn't want that crowd getting into it. She knew that crowd would get behind Anna Samova in an instant and see her as the big underdog, which she was. And she just didn't want to offer her a ray of hope, and she didn't. But no, I have no doubt, to get back to your original point, that Anna Samova and her supporters and her family, the whole group, will help to reinforce in her. You had an incredible tournament. That's your first major final. Forget the final. That wasn't just you. Your opponent was great. So let it be, because it doesn't change the fact that you won 6 matches to get there.
100% agree with that. Two quick things. I'm glad you mentioned Katie McNally. Katie had been hurt for a little while, and we know she can play some good tennis. She recently won the Newport Challenger on the WTA side, so she's been out for quite a bit. It was good to see her back. And then I also want to hear your thoughts on Sabalenka, because look, Steve, Sabalenka hasn't won a slam yet, but look at her results in the 3 slams. Finals in Australia, loses a brutal match to Keys. Finals of Roland Garros. We know the conditions were really messy there. Coco played it much better than her did. She admits that. And then semis here, loses a tough match 6-4 in the third. The consistency's there. She just hasn't been able to get over the hump this year to win.
But she's just announced she was pulling out of her next tournament with she's got a little mental fatigue. I think she is a little bit down despite that. But again, she will probably, hopefully she clears her head a bit too and realizes just what you said, that the consistency at the majors has been impressive. Yes, we would have thought by now she would have added another major to her collection after winning the Open at the end of last year and having won a couple of Australians already. But she's been very close, and the losses have not been decisive. And so it won't take that much to turn it around. But my hope, by the way, is that all things being equal, that we get Iga versus Sabalenka in the finals of the U.S. Open. I mean, granted, the American fans, I know, would much prefer that it was Coco against Pegula. But I think the best final,
Madison.
looking at it from a sort of a detached standpoint, I just honestly believe the best thing for women's tennis would be that rivalry, which we've been waiting for with those two. It looked for a time that we would start seeing a lot of important meetings between the two. Iga really had a very difficult year from Roland Garros up until now. But well, and Sabalenka through that whole period has been enormously consistent. So that could be a dandy if they were to meet in the U.S. Open final, and what would essentially be neutral turf. You might say Sabalenka slightly more confident and accomplished on hard courts, but there wouldn't be a big gap there, and I wouldn't be surprised if Iga beat her there.
Yeah, that would be some final on a Saturday in New York. All right, Sasha Zverev, he loses in the first round. He's just really been struggling. He even said the post match, he's like, he's just lost. He's basically lost. Recent footage, and we've all seen it on social media, he's been training at Rafa's Academy under the watchful eye of Uncle Tony. I think it's good that he's trying to change something up because his results, Steve, are just not there. They're just not there for to his liking or anyone on his team's liking.
No, they're not. And but what he added, David, was it wasn't just tennis. He was feeling empty,
Yeah.
period, on and off the court, just in life. That was worrisome. I would hope, by the way, and Darren Cahill talked about this in an interview over there, and he's talked about it in other interviews. And Darren didn't spell out exactly what he meant, but I think it was clear enough that during COVID, he got very down
Yeah.
and got some help. It sounds to me like I can't know for sure that it meant medication, but whatever it took, he got it. He sought the help. He got the help. I would hope that that's a step that Zverev would take, because sometimes these people, some people in all walks of life get too proud and they think that this is somehow an admission of that you're weak, or that you don't have what it takes to deal with it with life. And sometimes you got to go seek mental health, not just help for your ailments or physical struggles. And that's really what Sasha was telling us, is that something was wrong, something internally in his psyche was wrong. So I hope he seeks out that help and gets it. So that's as important as anything he can do. This Tony Nadal thing, that at least that strikes me as he was at least not moping and saying, I don't even care about my tennis anymore. The heck with it. It's a step. It's showing that, okay, look, I've tried to work things through with my father. I had Ferrero in my corner at one time. I had Lendl in my corner at one time. It didn't work out, but this could work, and I think it could work beautifully. What I don't like about the plan is there was some talk about Rafa, that maybe Rafa would be the mentor. I just would, if you're going to do it, let Tony Nadal do the job. Tony can say what, Rafa can tell Tony whatever he wants if Tony is seeking his advice, but Sasha should keep his focus on Tony. And I think Tony, look, when he took on FAA, Felix Auger-Aliassime, that didn't work out that great. He helped him in some ways, but Rafa was still out there. They played in the French Open. It was too soon for Tony to be working with somebody when his loyalties were to his nephew. That's gone now. Rafa's retired. I think Tony's in a position to do a much better job for Sasha than he could ever do for Felix. So I'm kind of excited about that development. I hope, and apparently it's going to be on a trial basis, and I hope it works out, and I hope we see Uncle Tony in New York.
I do want to, our last item here, I do want to address something. And for the listeners, I do not know how Steve is going to respond, but I'm glad Steve is going to address it. Steve is an esteemed member of the Hall of Fame, and you know all the history and all the induction ceremonies and all the great traditions that happen in Newport. And I don't know, about a week ago, less than a week ago, I can't remember. Um, but Bill Ackman and Jack Sock got a wild card into the Newport tournament. It's now a challenger, and there's men's side and women's side. We said Katie McNally won the women's side, but Bill Ackman and Jack Sock played doubles against Bernie Tomic, and I don't even remember Tomic's partner. But if you saw the footage, it was really more of a pro-am type of exhibition type of match. Um,
And keep in mind, as you say, this wasn't even in the qualifying. This is in the main draw of the doubles. So
Correct. Well said.
it's supposed to be serious competition.
Yeah. And with all that the Tennis Hall of Fame stands for and what it means for the people who have been inducted and part of the Hall of Fame, I want to leave it to you, Steve, to kind of address your own thoughts, maybe what they were thinking, and I'm just going to let you go with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what they were thinking when they made the choice but obviously they never anticipated. I think the thinking originally was kind of like, okay, it's just the doubles. And Jack Sock, obviously, you don't apologize for Jack Sock being in the draw because, here's a guy that's won major doubles championships. And they may have thought somehow that people wouldn't care. They'd understand that this was just, maybe the thinking was that the wild cards are up to the discretion of the tournament. Whoever, and it is true that there are no kind of, there are guidelines, but there was nothing to stop them from doing it, and so they did it. But obviously they just did not. It just didn't occur to them how this would ruffle so many feathers, because it would make the game look. It didn't reflect well on them, or certainly on the tournament, to have somebody who didn't belong there, who's 59 years old, and who has probably been quite a generous donator. I mean, he's done a lot of things behind the scenes in tennis and raising money and helping with the Djokovic Player Association. And he's obviously known by some of the players, and sounds like an affable guy, well liked in his circles, but not a serious player. And that's what I think they totally overlooked. How do you let a 59-year-old, unless that 59-year-old was some former a great player from the 1950s who said, I'd love to just play in your doubles tournament. Could I come? I mean, obviously in Sock's case, he's moved on, but you're fine with that. So it blew up. Andy Roddick was quite forceful in his denunciation on his podcast. He voiced it. He voiced it passionately on his podcast,
and he also said it wasn't Bill Ackman's fault. Someone said yes to this. It's like, Bill asked, someone said yes to allow it. So yeah, Andy did say that.
Yeah, right. And I think it's so unfortunate, because I don't know. I honestly don't know the details of who decided it, why they decided it, what the thinking was about why it would be acceptable. But here's what I like. That was the negative part, was there was a miscalculation and a lack of vision to think that they weren't going to be sharply criticized, no matter how well. And obviously he was not up to that level. And as you said, it came off as a pro-am atmosphere instead of a legitimate match. And it sounds like Tomic and his partner kind of carried them for a while in the second set, it went easy is what everybody felt. But there was a letter sent out by the Hall of Fame, and I got it yesterday. It went to all Hall of Famers. I just want to read you a couple briefly remarks. We're writing to address the recent decision to award a wildcard entry to Jack Sock and Bill Ackman to participate in the Hall of Fame Open, as well as the response it elicited both within our organization and across the broader tennis community. This year marked a significant evolution for the Hall of Fame Open, a transition to a challenger. With this transformation came a desire to infuse the tournament with renewed energy and innovation. As part of that effort, we elected to extend a wildcard to Jack Sock and Bill Ackman. In hindsight, we would not make this decision again. Moving forward, we will take steps to strengthen our decision-making process. To be clear, there was no financial contribution or pledge made by Bill Ackman to the Hall of Fame in exchange for the wildcard. For more than a decade, Bill has been a valued supporter of the International Tennis Hall of Fame, et cetera, et cetera. The International Tennis Hall of Fame's mission is to preserve the history of tennis, celebrate its champions, to inspire excellence across generations. Our Hall of Famers represent the highest ideals of our sport, and it's our responsibility to honor their legacies. Upholding the integrity of our mission and the values it embodies remains our priority. On behalf of the Executive Board of the International Tennis Hall of Fame. And it's signed by Dan Swan, the chairman, and by Dan Faber, who's the CEO, by Gigi Fernandez, who's vice chair, Russ Braden, who's vice chair, and then Patrick McEnroe, who's the president. So what I like about this statement, David, the key part is, that they don't try to make excuses for it. They try to give you a framework for why they might have decided originally, but they realize it was a complete mistake. And they didn't try to say, we had every right to do this. It's our decision. Some people may not like it. No, they realize it was a flagrant mistake. And I think that statement is going to go a long way to helping them repair the damage. And it should be. And I think the lesson's been learned. And I think the most unfortunate part, I have to say, that was a pitch perfect response, the letter that I just read. What was not was Ackman. He's been doing lots of tweets and I didn't
And he
like
said he
his.
said he tried to give $10 million to the Hall of Fame. They rejected. It's now going to the JTCC where Francis Tiafoe is
Right.
training.
But he sounds kind of flippant in his remarks, and I would have hoped that he would have said things. He would have expressed some remorse and some regret that he became the topic, that the controversy surrounding him overshadowed the tournament and was doing harm to the Hall of Fame. But he seemed to me to be taking unnecessary shots at them, and I just thought I didn't think he handled it well. The Hall of Fame did, because they're recognizing a mistake, and he should realize, okay, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. I'm a 59-year-old who loves to play tennis. I can enter national senior events. I'm entitled to play a lot of places where I fit in correctly and where I'm playing with people on my level. But he had no business being on the court standing across the net from Bernard Tomic, and it's
Right.
just I think he could have been more helpful. I get the fact that he feels like he's trying to do good things for tennis, and he probably is in a variety of ways. But when it came to his response to this situation, I was very disappointed by that, because I think he could have smoothed the waters quite a bit with the right comments and a sense of remorse. But there was none of that from him. The Hall of Fame, that group of people I mentioned, including Patrick McEnroe and Gigi Fernandez, I mean, they took just the right tone in what amounted to me to be what I thought was a kind of a genuine apology.
Look, people make mistakes. Everyone's made mistakes, including
Right,
you and me. I've made plenty.
right.
The hope to, you hope to learn from them and make corrective action. And what you just read off, the letter that you had received, and it looks like they will have learned their lesson. It won't happen again.
Well,
And
that's what they're saying. Yeah,
move
that's what
forward.
they're saying, and
Move
I
forward.
believe them. I believe them, and I think they recognize, and it sounds entirely sincere to me, what every word they're saying, and I hope people will let it blow over. I don't think it should be seen as sort of the. I don't think people should take this as an invitation to sort of demean or sharply criticize or overlook all of the great things the Hall of Fame is doing, and what they represent and what it all means. They just they just they just got it wrong on this one. They got it wrong in the sense that, no, you got to take the tournament seriously, and you got to and bringing Jack Sock in is great, but give him a partner somewhat close to his age, another former player, somebody who's with it, because you're taking that spot away from
Right.
some young player that might
Right.
really need it, or it could propel him forward in the game. So if you're going to take it away, give it to somebody else along the lines of a Sock, but who's really worthy of it. And Bill Ackman was not worthy of it, and I think everybody knows that now, including those that decided at the time to give him the wild card.
Well,
Now,
look, thank you.
the other thing that seems that I'm not entirely clear on is, did they know? They understood it was Sock. Did they know? Did everybody know immediately it was Sock and Ackman? I don't know. There's a lot of talk about those things, but whatever the case, uh, it shouldn't have happened, and the Hall of Fame knows that now.
Well, again, with you being a member of the Hall of Fame, this was nice. We got a little inside baseball, as they say, with you having a little bit behind the scenes about what happened in the letter that
Well,
you
also I
received.
know these people. I know Gigi well. I know Patrick well, and I know Dan Faber well. I mean, I know the kind of people they are, and there's a lot of decency and intelligence and reason in that group, and that's why I'm convinced nothing like this will ever happen again. And I think they will. And I think next year, when it comes to this tournament comes around again, and wild cards are being considered, everybody will be looking at it with a fine tooth comb and saying, "Now hold it a second. Does this one hold up? Does this one really deserve it?" Because, as I said a moment ago, you're taking that place away from somebody else that might. In a lot of cases, you could be giving that wild card to somebody that would really appreciate it and might be ready to go on to climb the rankings in singles or doubles. And this could be the first step in that process.
Thank you. Thank you for addressing it. I'm sure the listeners are going to really appreciate what you had to say and what you had to offer about the situation. We're going around 45 minutes here, so we're going to end it at this point, Steve. Um, Summer hardcourt swing is right around the corner. So, especially those in the U.S., it's an exciting time for them because there's a lot of tournaments on. American turf, as we would say, and culminating in the U.S. Open late August, early September. So I know you're looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it, and I've got my fingers crossed that somehow you're going to end up there somewhere in the midst of the tournament. We're going to see you on site at the U.S. Open. You know, it may not work. It may not look likely now, but I'm hoping that as we get closer to the tournament, you get moved to do that.
We shall see. Thank you, Steve, for everything that you have to offer on today's segment, and look forward to starting the summer hard court swing with you shortly.
Yeah, same here, David. Thanks a lot.